With spring training getting started, now's the time to check out MLB.com's preseason top 10 prospects from 10 years ago. Most of the time with these lists, there's a few players they get right, a few comical misrankings, and a few guys who looked good but got hurt. We usually just run through their path to the majors, what made them great prospects, and whether or not they lived up to their expectations. But this video is different. 9 of these top 10 debuted within a few months of this ranking, and every single one contributed at the major league level by their early 20s. 2 of these guys were crowned Rookies of the Year later that year. In terms of pure ability, this list did not include a single player that wasn't an all-star talent. But that's not what makes this list special. Besides the anomalous organization of talent, this list is uniquely tragic. 3 of these players, once touted as those who would push the game forward and usurp the stars of yesteryear, are dead. Their talent was mythical, their best moments were magical, but in the end, 2013's top 10 prospects are defined by their misfortune. Here are their stories. The Angels selected Tyler Skaggs out of high school with one of their 5 first-round draft picks, 15 spots after some guy named Mike Trout. But just barely a year after being selected, he was traded to Arizona in the Dan Herron deal. He was solid in A-ball throughout 2010, but 2011 skyrocketed his expectations. He struck out over 11 batters per 9 across 27 starts in High A and Double A, earned a Futures Game start, and was named the Diamondbacks Minor League Pitcher of the Year. The D-backs recalled him for 6 late-season starts in 2012, and he was named to this list. But he took a step back during 2013 because of decreased velocity. This led to him being traded back to the Angels, where he cracked their starting rotation out of spring training in 2014. His first half had its ups and downs, but on July 31st, he had a no-hitter going in the 5th inning against a great Orioles lineup. He looked as sharp as ever, but in that inning, something gave way in his elbow, and he immediately called for the trainers. Tommy John recovery and then biceps tendonitis kept Skaggs out for 2 years, and he only made 26 starts across 2016 and 2017. 2018 was finally his breakout campaign. Through 19 starts, he looked like the ace that he was drafted to be, and it looked like he'd be fronting the Angels rotation for years to come. But more injuries led to a brutal string of 5 starts to end his season. Tyler's career was marred by injury and pain. He admitted to battling opioid addiction during the 2013 season, so he wasn't even prescribed any painkillers after his Tommy John surgery, but he could only evade his demons for so long. In 2019, after a June start, team trainer Eric Kay sold Skaggs oxycodone pills under the table, as he'd done in the past, but the pills were unknowingly cut with fentanyl, and Tyler overdosed and was pronounced dead on July 1st. He was just 27 years old. The aftermath of Tyler's death is still unfolding, and hopefully sports leagues and this country as a whole honor him by taking opioid addiction seriously and helping those who are struggling with addiction. In their first home game after his passing, the Angels honored Tyler with their play on the field.
The Angels have no hit the Seattle Mariners. It is a perfect night to honor a perfect human being in Tyler Skaggs.
Gerrit Cole, aka Tack Merchant, aka Kermit Cole, whatever you want to call him, he's the most accomplished player on this list and probably on the entire top 100. As the ace of a loaded UCLA pitching staff, the Pirates made him the first overall selection in the 2011 draft. He pitched in the Fall League that year and skyrocketed to AAA by the end of 2012. It was no surprise when he was recalled just a few weeks into the 2013 season. It may be hard to believe for some younger fans, but the Pirates actually made the playoffs in 2013. After an exciting wildcard win, the Pirates gave Cole the ball for Game 2 of the NLDS. His 6 innings of 1-run ball and RBI base hit even the series at 1 game apiece. He threw another strong start in Game 5, but his bullpen and lineup let him down. Cole's 2014 was alright, but 2015 gave the world a glimpse of his true potential. He threw over 200 innings and finished with a .260 ERA on the year, earning a 4th place finish in a loaded Cy Young field. Despite winning 98 games, the Pirates were stuck in another wildcard game, and Cole was tasked with getting them past their division rival Cubs. It didn't go well.
Schwarber cracks one in the air, deep right field, get out the tape measure, long gone!
A triceps strain limited Gerrit in 2016, and his numbers were down across the board during a full 2017. The Pirates' coaching philosophy of pitching to contact didn't maximize the elite potential of Gerrit's stuff. This mishandling of talent was all the more apparent after he was traded to the Astros. Houston Astros' Gerrit Cole is one of the best pitchers I've ever seen. He finished 5th in Cy Young voting in 2018, but his 2018 pales in comparison to his 2019. Cole struck out nearly 14 batters per 9, finished with a whip below 0.9, and won the AL ERA crown. The only reason he didn't win Cy Young is because teammate Justin Verlander was just about as good, although I would have voted for Gerrit. He also dominated the Rays and the Yankees in the postseason and picked up an essential Game 5 win in the World Series. But when the Astros lost to Howard Joseph Kendrick III, it was clear that the team wasn't prepared to match his free agent market, so he took his talents to his childhood team. Ever since joining the Yankees, Cole has been excellent, but hasn't quite lived up to the unfairly high expectations he set for himself in Houston. He's been heavily associated with the league-wide spider tax scandal, and his awful showing in the 2021 wildcard game unfairly changed his perception from big game ace to choker who relies on sticky stuff. He's still an elite pitcher, and he basically single-handedly beat the Guardians in the 2022 ALDS. But with the biggest contract on MLB's most hated team, the expectation is to win World Series games and Cy Young awards. He'll be 33 this year. If he finishes out this contract strong, he may have the Hall of Fame on the horizon, but even if he doesn't, his talent is nearly unmatched in this prospect class.
Zack Wheeler was originally drafted in the first round of the 2009 draft by the Giants. This was the draft year that had Steven Strasburg picked first overall, as well as having Tyler Skaggs and some fish guy. He was slated to begin his career in 2010 in A-ball and pitched fine enough in his first 7 games to be a late addition to the 2010 Futures game. Overall, that year he had good strikeout numbers, but a concerning walk rate of 5.8 walks per 9. In 2011, he saw a bit of an improvement in the Giants system. But on July 27, 2011, he was traded with cash to the Mets for a guy who, later in his career, would assist in musical trash can banging for another team. In the Mets system, at least for the remainder of the 2011 season, Zack Wheeler solved his walk issue, which was at 4.8 walks per 9 with the Giants, 1.7 walks per 9 with the Mets. And also, it balanced out in 2012 with strong improvements in Double and Triple A. In 2013, he finally gets the call to the majors and once again is serviceable through the remainder of the season, and he was able to make opening day in 2014. Zack Wheeler pitches a complete season for the first time with a 9.1 K per 9 and 185 innings pitched. So everything looks promising, right? In the offseason, it is found that Wheeler has a torn UCL, requiring Tommy John surgery, effectively canceling his 2015 season. Wheeler lost 2 full seasons to Tommy John surgery and recovery, and the Mets gingerly set him on pace to return in 2017, which he did, but was shut down after 86-ish innings of mediocre pitching. He finally gets back to the majors for a full season in 2018 after 1 start in the minors, and has been in the majors ever since. As a Met, Wheeler was always right there, where there were flashes and even stretches of brilliance, but nothing consistent. In 2018 and 2019, he started off dreadfully. However, in the second half, he would pick it up a lot. He had a 1.68 ERA in 2018 and a 2.83 in 2019. With the Phillies, he's finally shown his potential as a second and possibly ace starter in a team rotation. Wheeler's stuff was always good enough in the majors, but the perception was that in the Mets organization, the Mets were trying to make him a Jacob deGrom light. However, Wheeler's stuff plays differently. Wheeler developed a contact-oriented approach his first year with Philly and had instant results. His walk rate was consistently low, his K per walk rate stayed the same the first year as it had in previous, and his FIP stayed real close to his ERA, which meant that whatever he was doing in his pitching, it was sustainable. And go figure, the next couple of years his K per 9 went up anyway, which essentially turned him into the Jacob deGrom light the Mets wanted, but on another team. Our health and performance department, our coaches, all contributed and helped him parlay 2 good half seasons over the last 5 years into $118 million. I'm proud of what our group was able to help him accomplish. Fuck you, Brody. The Mets could have had him.
When I was talking about Gerrit Cole earlier, I made sure to pick my words carefully. Cole is the most accomplished on this list, but there is zero doubt in my mind that Jose Fernandez was by far the most talented. But before he could take his talents to the States, he had to get to the States. Jose grew up in Cuba on the same street as Aledmys Diaz. After his stepfather defected to Florida, Jose was caught attempting to flee the island 3 separate times and faced jail time after each attempt. At just 15 years old, him and his mother successfully defected to Mexico on their 4th try, but this attempt was by far the most treacherous. The Gulf waters got so choppy that Jose's mother fell overboard. The only reason she's still alive today is because Jose dove in after her and helped her back onto the boat. As a 15-year-old, Jose was already a hero to his family. After some eligibility concerns nearly led to him signing as an international free agent with the Reds, he pitched his senior season and was drafted 14th overall by the Marlins. High school starters are usually high-risk picks that take years to properly develop. In his first professional season, Fernandez put up some of the most ridiculous numbers I have ever seen. He jumped straight from high A ball to the majors after spring of 2013, and by the end of his rookie campaign, he'd thrown more innings in the majors than the minors. He was an all-star, won Rookie of the Year, and finished 3rd in Cy Young voting in his age 20 season. He was being compared to Dwight Gooden and Bob Feller. After a spectacular start in 2014, Tommy John surgery knocked Jose out for over a year. During his recovery, it was apparent how much the league missed his presence. It wasn't just his immeasurable talent and incredible numbers, it was his childlike love for this game. Every 5th day, he showed up to put on a show for the fans. And every day in between, he was an active and energetic voice in the Marlins dugout. When he hit his first career homer, he pimped it just long enough to clear the benches. Before finishing out 7 innings of 1-run ball, he breathed life into a usually lethargic Marlins park. The Marlins may not have been good, but god damn it, they were fun. And the energy that Jose brought to the sport spearheaded the league-wide youth movement. He came back without missing a beat in 2015, and fans anticipated a Cy Young caliber season on the horizon in 2016, and he nearly fulfilled those expectations. He had 3 different 14 strikeout performances, and with the Marlins just barely clinging on to wildcard hopes, on September 20th, Jose pitched the game of his life.
Got him! Broken bat, Gordon's got it, Jose, terrific!
We didn't know it at the time, but this was also the last game he would ever pitch. Early on September 25th, Jose crashed his boat while intoxicated, killing himself and 2 friends. The baseball world was left in shock, but after canceling just 1 game, the Marlins had to play baseball again. D. Strange Gordon, who had just 8 career homers and over 2,000 at-bats, stepped up and did the impossible.
Gordon to right, it's deep, and it's gone!
He was a franchise and league-altering talent. On a team with JT Realmuto, Christian Yelich, and Giancarlo Stanton, Jose Fernandez was the player to watch. And over 6 years after his tragic death, the Marlins haven't quite picked up the pieces. He only started 76 games in his career, but the mark he left on this game is indisputable.
Well, on a much lighter note, I, No More Fielders, present to you Travis d'Arnaud, or as us southern folks say it, Travis Darnad. Travis d'Arnaud came from a family of dirty musicians living in Los Angeles. Realizing that following in his parents' footsteps means minimum wage fast food jobs until you turn 30, Travis, along with his brother Chase, decided to pursue athletics instead. His lifelong dream was to become the catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, just like his hero, Mike Piazza. d'Arnaud forgoed going to college, as scouts were all over the school that has produced the talents of Mike Karp, Chris Gomez, and John Elefante, lead singer of pioneering rock group Kansas. d'Arnaud was drafted by the Phillies with the 37th overall pick. Typical growing pains ensued for the young catcher, but soon he found himself quickly excelling the ranks of the Philly system, even catching up to his older brother Chase, who was laying his own foundation in Pittsburgh system. Then came the trade. The first one. TDA was sent to Toronto in a package for future Hall of Famer Roy Halladay. It was with the Blue Jays where d'Arnaud's path towards the majors started to really pick up steam, putting up a .914 OPS and 466 plate appearances as a 22-year-old for the AA Fisher Cats in 2011. Then came the trade. The actual one, when the Blue Jays sent d'Arnaud along with Noah Syndergaard and some other guys to the Mets for R.A. Dickey. This leads us to 2013. The Mets, ever so aggressive to keep up with their lineage of successful catchers, debut Lil D in late August against the Padres. His debut was, well, it wasn't good. The Padres stole on him 3 times. TDA would allow a passed ball on a perpetual Pedro Feliciano heater. Side note, rest in peace, Pedro. Overall, his cup of coffee was bad. But the Mets had faith in their future catcher, naming him to their starting role in 2014. Their gamble somewhat paid off. He would post decent offensive stats for a catcher, but his defensive game led to some questions. He was a decent blocker and good game caller, showing he had the ability to lead a pitching staff throughout the season. Unfortunately, his stolen base prevention was 2014 also marked the beginning of a trend. Travis d'Arnaud couldn't stop getting hurt. The injuries throughout the years included multiple concussions, broken hand, bruised wrist, bone chip, UCL hyperextended elbow, wrist, and ended with a broken heart when the Mets decided to release him in 2019. After a few weeks, he signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers, finally fulfilling his lifelong goal of being able to play for his childhood team. For one at-bat, for which he subsequently grounded out. The Tampa Bay Rays, always hungry for reclamation projects, took it upon themselves to purchase d'Arnaud from the Dodgers. It was here where d'Arnaud completely turned his career around. His tenure included an infamous game in which he launched 3 homers against the Yankees. The Braves signed the 30-year-old catcher to a 2-year, $16 million deal. The real tragedy about d'Arnaud is that his best quote-unquote full season came in the abbreviated 2020. d'Arnaud would experience yet another gruesome injury against Toronto in 2021, but fortunately would come back in time to help propel the Braves into their unlikely World Series run, even being the first Brave since Chipper Jones to launch a home run in Atlanta during the World Series. And for that, we thank him.
Hold on. Over 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed. Last time I asked, it worked wonders, so I'm once again asking you to hit that subscribe button if you like what you've seen so far. Alright, back to the video. With how long Taijuan Walker's been around, it's hard to believe that he only just turned 30. He made his MLB debut just after turning 21 in 2013 after shooting through the Mariners system. He spent most of 2014 in the minors, save for some spot starts and another September call-up, and he finally cracked the rotation for good to start 2015. Taijuan was hyped up as the heir to King Felix's throne, occasionally showing flashes of his potential excellence, like the time he took a perfect game into the 6th inning against the Angels. Even though he finished 2016 on a high note, in the offseason, they traded him to the D-backs at just 24 years old. A few years prior, he was completely untouchable, and Seattle wouldn't even give him up for David Price and Ben Zobrist. I guess he hadn't lived up to their expectations, even though he was solid and still young. He had a pretty good 2017 with the D-backs, helping them to the playoffs, but he fell flat in his one postseason start. He tore his UCL early during the 2018 season and didn't return to the field until the final game of 2019. The D-backs non-tendered him after the year, and he returned to the Mariners on a 1-year deal. Taijuan only made 5 more starts for Seattle before they traded him again, this time to Toronto. He pitched well enough with the Blue Jays to earn a multi-year deal with the Mets, and in Queens, Walker got off to a blazing hot start, earning an all-star nod and becoming a fan favorite. But pitching through injuries and fatigue, his second half was absolutely brutal. Fans and the media turned on him, and it looked like he might not even crack the rotation to start 2022. But he rebounded and proved he could handle a full workload, finishing out the year with solid numbers and earning a 4-year, $72 million contract with the Phillies. As of now, Walker hasn't exactly lived up to the insane prospect billing, but whenever he's been healthy, he's been effective, and he'll stick around this league for years to come.
A 3rd-round draft pick out of high school by the Royals in 2009, Myers was noted for having an incredible bat, and in the minors, this showed. Even though the Royals took it slow, trying to find him a position after catcher didn't work out, Myers slugged his way through the minor leagues. His 2012 between AA and AAA made him well deserving of the 4th spot on this MLB Pipeline's top 100. Frankly, I'm shocked the Royals prefer to run out Jeff Francoeur and his 76 WRC+, instead of at least trying out Myers. But the Royals never gave Myers a chance. In the 2012-2013 offseason, they shipped him off to the Rays in a deal that was universally panned at the time. Experts believed that the Royals were mortgaging their future in exchange for a mediocre present. But the Royals ended up appearing in back-to-back World Series, with Wade Davis playing a major role as the closer in their 2015 World Series championship. Myers, on the other hand, started out his major league career as expected. Despite only playing 88 games with the Rays in 2013, he won the Rookie of the Year. But 2014 was a disaster. He missed 3 months with a wrist injury and had a 76 WRC+ on on the season. And so, after the season, the Rays shipped him off to San Diego in a very complicated 3-team trade. Let's look at Myers' tenure with the Padres. In 8 seasons, his career high WAR was 3.4. And aside from his career high season in 2016, he never topped 2 WAR. Additionally, his bat was never fully realized, as he never had a WRC plus above 115, with exception to the weird shortened 2020 season. The problem with Myers' time in San Diego was twofold. The first was that he was essentially positionless. When he was first acquired, the Padres tried him in center field, and he was terrible. He accumulated -7 defensive runs saved and -23.7 UZR per 150 in his first year in center field. They then moved him to first, which isn't great for a guy with a bat that's just above league average. When the Padres signed Eric Hosmer, they tried Myers at third base, a position where he had only played 15 games in the minor leagues, and when it shockingly didn't go well there, he settled in as a corner outfielder. The second problem is the contract they signed him to after his career best year. In January 2017, they signed him to a 6-year, $83 million contract extension. He made $22.5 million a year from 2020 to 2022. In that 3-season time span, he only contributed 5 WAR. For context, first baseman Jose Abreu made $16.67 million a year and put up 9.5 fWAR for the White Sox in the same time span. And among all the players the Padres traded to get Wil Myers, they included a shortstop named Trey Turner. Wil Myers signed with Cincinnati this past offseason on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal with incentives that can earn him up to $9.5 million. I know I've trashed on him a little bit, but he's still a serviceable major leaguer. You don't make it 10 years in the bigs without being one. And I'm sure Myers still has a few more major league years to come.
Family and friends started calling Oscar Taveras El Fenomeno when he was just 5 years old. By the time he was an early teen, he knew he'd be a pro ball player. The Cardinals signed him as a 16-year-old out of the DR, and he tore up minor league pitching practically the second he turned 18. Oscar hit for power, average, drew walks, stole bases, and played center field for the Springfield Cardinals in 2012, which earned him a top 3 ranking on this list. He began 2013 at AAA, and a serious high ankle sprain kept him out for most of the year and required surgery, so he found himself on the 2014 top prospects list, again ranked 3rd in baseball. After a hot start at AAA, the phenomenon made his anticipated big league debut on May 31st, 2014, and he didn't disappoint.
Hit hard, deep to right. It's a long one, and it is gone. Home run, Oscar Taveras.
He homered in his second big league at-bat, leading the Cardinals to a 2-0 win. Taveras was in the Cardinals lineup for 80 games that season, but he only homered twice more after his debut. He didn't emerge as the great hitter he was expected to be, and his defense and base running were below average, to say the least. He wasn't in the Cardinals lineup come playoff time, but that didn't keep him from making a huge impact.
That's hit in the air to right. Taveras off the bench has tied it.
Oscar went 3 for 7 as a pinch hitter in the playoffs, and although he didn't instantly emerge as a star like some of the others on this list, he was a big body with incredible plate coverage. Some scouts called him a lefty version of Vladimir Guerrero, and he only had room to improve at the dish. But just days after their season ended, tragedy struck. During Game 5 of the World Series between the Royals and Giants, it was announced that Taveras died in a car accident in the DR. Yordano Ventura, who grew up with Taveras and was close friends with him, started Game 6 of the World Series. He absolutely dominated the Giants lineup with a tribute to his friend on his cap. It was an electric performance by the 23-year-old, establishing himself as a big game ace. Ventura was ranked the 59th best prospect on this list, and he too tragically died in a car accident in the DR just over 2 years after Oscar. The 4 most recent MLB players who died while on big league rosters were all prospects on this very ranking. 4 possible future stars of this league, all taken from us within a decade of their debuts. It's devastating, not only for the sport, but for those who lost friends, brothers, fathers, and husbands.
While many of the careers on this list are literally tragic, Dylan Bundy's career has been more figuratively tragic. When he was drafted by the Orioles in 2011, Bundy was one of the most hyped high school pitching prospects in history. At just 17 years old, Bundy made national headlines for routinely throwing in the triple digits. The Orioles hoped that he would be the ace of the future they've been looking for, and at first, it seemed like he was on the right track. In his first professional season, he posted a 2.08 ERA and just over 100 innings across the low A, high A, AAA and AA levels, and in September, it would get him called up for his first 2 innings in the big leagues. But unfortunately, this would be the last time he would see a major league mound for nearly 4 years. After being named the number 2 prospect in baseball going into 2013, Bundy was forced to miss the entire season due to Tommy John surgery, and when he came back, his 100-mile-per-hour fastball had regressed into the low 90s, an issue that was only compounded by shoulder issues in 2015. When he finally got back to the majors in 2016, he was still only 23 years old, and the Orioles were still hopeful about his future. The good news was that Bundy would stay healthy over the next few years, and he'd become a reliable innings eater for Baltimore. The problem was that those innings weren't very good. From 2016 to 2019, Bundy would put up an ERA and FIP over 4 in every single season, and in 2018, he would lead the league in home runs allowed, as he was one of the worst pitchers in baseball in terms of giving up barrels and hard contact. After 2019, the Orioles finally ran out of patience, and they sent him to where every middling pitcher's career goes to die, the Los Angeles Angels. But amidst all the weirdness of the 2020 season, Bundy became one of the only pitchers to actually get better in Anaheim. However, he wasn't able to keep that momentum into the next season. By July, Bundy was demoted to the Angel bullpen, and he ended up posting an ERA over 6 in 2021. The Twins would take a 1-year flyer on him the next season, but after posting a career-low strikeout rate, Minnesota decided to not pick up his option for 2023. Bundy still hasn't signed with the team for the upcoming season. This was not how his career was supposed to go, but as we've seen throughout this list, the baseball gods are cruel and fickle beings, and the injury bug does not discriminate. That being said, hopefully he can sign on somewhere soon and give his story a happier ending.
In terms of the adversity and pathway he took to finally becoming a productive player, Jurickson Profar's story may be the most interesting. So many of these prospects shot straight through the minors and made an impact in their early 20s, and it looked like Profar was one of those guys too. He debuted just 7 years after playing in the Little League World Series for Curacao at just 19 years old. He didn't even play rookie ball after signing with the Rangers organization. He was so advanced that he was playing in Low A right after turning 17, ranked as the number 7 prospect entering 2012, and played so well at Double A that year that the Rangers recalled him, and his debut only fed into the hype.
Here in the major leagues, and he cranks one high and deep to right field. It is way back. Goodbye! Welcome to the big leagues, Jurickson Profar.
He barely played anymore the rest of that season, but he did keep the Rangers' hopes alive with 2 outs in the 9th inning of their wildcard game against the Orioles. Even though the Rangers lost, the Profar hype was real. He began 2013 at AAA and was quickly recalled after a hot start. He stuck around as a utility bat throughout the year, but definitely had room to grow. 2014 was the beginning of a multi-year saga of shoulder problems. When he strained his shoulder muscle in the spring of 2014 and had multiple setbacks that kept him out the entire season, the team decided that surgery was necessary, and he missed nearly all of 2015 recovering. The Rangers recalled Profar in May of 2016, and although he'd played well in his first couple of months back on the roster, he struggled in the second half and lost out on playing time down the stretch. Jurickson spent most of 2017 at AAA, and he was suddenly entering his age 25 season with no big league success in 5 years since his debut. He was out of options, so 2018 was his last chance to make the Rangers roster for good, and he finally broke through, at least on offense. His hitting was above average, and he was an efficient base stealer, but he clearly wasn't the shortstop the Rangers wanted him to be. He worked extremely hard to finally prove himself worthy of a lineup spot, but Texas was far from the contenders that they were when Profar debuted all those years ago, so they decided to move on, sending him to their division rival A's. His 1 year in Oakland wasn't great, and he was flipped to the Padres the next offseason, where he finally found some stability. He was a decent utility man in 2020 and 2021, before putting up his best season as a big leaguer as the Padres' full-time left fielder in 2022. As of today, he's currently unsigned entering 2023, but he just turned 30 years old, can play multiple positions, switch hits, and hit really well last year. There's no shame in being a journeyman. He's been in the bigs for nearly a decade of service time and should continue to find roles on big league rosters for years to come. Like I said earlier, I don't think this group of players had one guy who couldn't have been an all-star, but taking a look at their career wins above replacement, they clearly didn't fulfill their potential. Cole and Wheeler are the only 2 on this list who've had careers that lived up to their prospect billing. Even though Fernandez died almost 7 years ago, he's still in the top half of this list in terms of career WAR. And Cole and Myers are the only two guys on here who haven't missed significant time since their debuts. But a cumulative number like WAR isn't really fair considering how much time these guys have missed. To put these abridged careers into context, I charted the batters based on fWAR per 650 plate appearances and pitchers on fWAR per 180 innings pitched. Taveras only played half a season in the bigs, so he's not included here. Profar and Bundy being ranked ahead of some incredible players looks a bit out of place, but their injuries definitely sap their tools. This chart also shows just how good Travis d'Arnaud is when he plays. Talented defensive catchers who can also hit don't grow on trees. But the most important thing this list shows is that Jose Fernandez was in a league of his own as a 5.5 WAR per year player in his early 20s. Cole and Wheeler are both aces, and Cole may be a Hall of Famer, but Fernandez just dwarfs them here. In a perfect world, we would have watched all 10 of these incredible talents at full health run the league for the last decade. But athletes aren't superheroes. They're human, just as vulnerable to mistakes, injuries, and death as you or me.